The scent of gardenias from my daughter's wedding bouquet was so heavy, it filled the entire limousine. She was smiling, her eyes bright with a future I knew was a carefully constructed lie. As we pulled up to the church, all I could think was, I am not giving my daughter away today. I am surrendering her to a predator. And I am the only one who knows. My life, before Michael, was quiet and predictable. I was Eleanor, a 63-year-old widow who found comfort in routine. My daughter Sarah was the vibrant center of my world. A nurse and a single mother to two beautiful children, she had a heart so big it sometimes forgot to be careful. We lived in a gentle rhythm of school plays, Sunday dinners, and shared cups of tea. Our family wasn't extravagant, but we were comfortable. My late husband, Robert, had been a careful planner. He left us with a paid-off home and wise investments, a nest egg meant to secure our future and the children's education. It was a quiet life, but it was ours, and it was built on truth. Then Michael arrived. He entered our world not with a bang, but with a smooth, quiet confidence. Sarah met him at the community center where he'd started volunteering. He was 32, handsome in a polished way, with a smile that seemed practiced. He presented himself as a financial consultant, a man who helped families. He was charming, of course. He remembered the children's names, brought me a beautiful plant for my garden, and spoke to Sarah with a focused attention she hadn't experienced in years. He seemed, on the surface, to be the steady, reliable man she deserved. But from the very beginning, a cold dread settled in my stomach. His charm felt like a performance. His questions about our family, our traditions, and even my late husband's career felt less like interest and more like research. The first true crack appeared during a Sunday dinner. Michael excused himself to use the restroom, but turned right instead of left, walking directly into my home office. When I followed a moment later, I found him not admiring the family photos, but looking at the financial statements I'd left on my desk. He jumped when he saw me. "Eleanor, this is a lovely room, so organized," he said, his voice a little too bright. I simply smiled and pointed him toward the actual bathroom. That night, I couldn't sleep. A mother's intuition is a powerful and often painful thing. It whispers warnings long before the world starts shouting. Despite my private fears, Sarah was blossoming. She glowed with a happiness I hadn't seen since before her first marriage ended. When Michael proposed after only 6 months, she said yes without a moment's hesitation. I smiled. I hugged her. I told her I was happy for her. But inside, I was crumbling. I tried once to voice my concern. It was a week before the wedding. We were tasting cake, and she was so full of light. "Sarah, my love, I'm so happy to see you this happy. But are you certain about Michael? We don't know very much about his family, his past." Her face fell, and the light in her eyes shut off. "Not you too, Mom," she whispered, her voice tight with hurt. "I thought you, of all people, would be on my side. He makes me feel safe. For the first time in years, I feel safe. Why can't you just be happy for me?" That word, safe, felt like a knife. She saw a protector. I saw the very thing she needed protection from. In that moment, I realized my direct approach would only push her further into his arms. My silence became the price of staying in her life. The wedding day arrived, and I walked her down the aisle, my smile a mask, my heart a stone. The first 2 years of their marriage were a quiet, tense performance. Michael was the perfect husband and stepfather. He helped with homework, attended school events, and spoke of a bright, shared future. But the pressure on me began to build slowly and methodically. It started with small comments. "Eleanor, you really should consider consolidating your investments," he'd say over dinner. "At your age, you need less complexity." Then it escalated. He began questioning the financial structures my lawyer, Richard, had set up for me. "These trusts are so old-fashioned," he'd muse over dinner. "They lock away assets that could be working harder for the family." The climax of his campaign came during a Christmas dinner. He sat at the head of the table, a folder of documents before him. "Eleanor, Sarah and I are worried. Managing all these accounts alone is a burden for a woman at your age. We think it's time you signed a power of attorney. Let me handle the complicated financial matters. It's what family is for." I looked at Sarah. She was nodding, her eyes pleading with me. "Michael just wants to help, Mom, to take the stress off you." The betrayal wasn't in his ask. It was in the fact that he had convinced my own daughter that his greed was concern for my well-being. I felt the walls closing in. I was being cornered in my own family, painted as a stubborn, aging woman who refused help. I started to feel a profound loneliness. I declined more dinner invitations. The sound of my own tea kettle in my quiet kitchen became the soundtrack of my isolation. I was losing my daughter, and I was the only one who could see the battlefield. The Christmas dinner was the final straw. I could no longer just be suspicious. I had to know. I called Richard, my lawyer, and then I did something I never imagined I would do. I hired a private investigator. Her name was Patricia, a serious woman with calm eyes. "I need the truth about Michael Thompson," I told her, "whatever it is." 10 days later, she called me back. Her report was a confirmation of my worst fears. Michael Thompson was not who he said he was. His real name was Michael Patterson. His financial consulting was a series of short-term jobs that ended when questions were raised about client funds. And there were other women, two, that Patricia had found. Single mothers, women with some assets, both had experienced significant financial loss and identity theft during their relationships with him. One lost her entire savings. The other was left with massive credit card debt. The pattern was chillingly clear. He targeted, he charmed, he integrated, and he plundered. My family was not special. We were simply his biggest score yet. Reading that report, sitting alone at my kitchen table, I didn't feel anger. I felt a cold, clear certainty. The power balance had just shifted. He thought he was hunting me. He didn't know I was now hunting him. There would be no dramatic confrontation. That would only give him a chance to lie his way out. Instead, I began to build a fortress, brick by quiet brick. I met with Richard, and we fortified my financial protections. We added layers of security, requiring multiple verifications for any transaction. Any attempt to forge my signature would automatically trigger a fraud alert and freeze the accounts. Richard looked at me, concerned. "This is extreme, Eleanor," I replied, my voice steady. "I am preparing for an extreme person." I began a journal. I documented every financial suggestion Michael made, every pressured comment, every date and time. I kept copies of every document. I was creating a paper trail that would tell the story he was trying to hide. I also reached out, through Patricia, to the other women he had victimized. I was gentle, telling them only that I believed they had been wronged by the same man and that I was building a case. One of them, Catherine, was hesitant at first, but then she shared her story. Her pain, her feeling of violation, it mirrored my fears for Sarah. We were no longer isolated victims. We were becoming a quiet alliance. My plan was simple. I would do nothing to stop his next move. I would let him believe he was winning. I would make him feel secure until he committed an act so clearly fraudulent that it would be undeniable in a court of law. I was setting a trap, and the bait was my own life's work. The trap sprung faster than I expected. I took a planned trip to London to visit my sister. It was the perfect opportunity for Michael, and he took it. While I was away, he presented a forged power of attorney document to my bank, attempting to transfer a large sum of money into an account he controlled. What he didn't know was that the second the document was scanned, the entire system locked down. Richard was notified. The bank manager, who I had personally spoken with, was notified. The police were notified. The confrontation didn't happen in a shouting match. It happened in my living room. Sarah had discovered the documents in his desk. She was devastated, her world in pieces. When Michael came home, expecting his usual welcome, he found the three of us waiting: Sarah, Richard, and myself. The evidence was spread across the coffee table. His face went pale. He started to bluster, to lie. "This is a misunderstanding, Eleanor. You are confusing things in your old age." But his words fell flat in the face of the truth. Sarah finally saw him, not the man she loved, but the stranger I had always seen. The confident facade crumbled, revealing the desperate, cornered man beneath. The police arrived shortly after. As they led him away, the only sound was Sarah's quiet sobbing. The victory felt hollow, but necessary. The aftermath was messy. There was a trial. Michael was convicted on multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. The evidence was overwhelming, especially with the testimony of the other women. He received a long prison sentence. The financial damage to our family was zero, but the emotional toll was immense. For Sarah, it was a brutal awakening. It took months of tears and gentle conversations for us to find our way back to each other. She had to rebuild her sense of trust, not just in others, but in her own judgment. I never said, "I told you so." There was no point. Her pain was my pain. We are closer now, in a different way. The experience taught us both about the strength that lies in quiet observation, in trusting your instincts even when everyone calls you paranoid. I learned that protecting someone you love doesn't always mean shielding them from every hurt. Sometimes it means having the strength to let them stumble while ensuring you are there to catch them before they fall too far. The greatest acts of love are often the quietest ones, performed in the shadows, long before the storm ever hits. If this real-life story resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more calm reflections on family, love, and the quiet strength it takes to protect them. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below.